Hello and welcome to another episode of That's Absurd. Please elaborate. The science comedy podcast now featuring back and forth banter between the hosts.
We did have it before. It's a new edition.
We've been discussing ways to innovate. We came up with that one just now.
Yeah.
Wow.
See, I say something, and then you say something.
And then I say something. I should tell you who I am. I'm Julian Huguet, one of the two banterers.
And I am the other half of the bantering system that we've set up here for the first time anywhere. Trace Dominguez, also science communicator.
The patented bantering system.
First time ever. I hope that this live demo goes well.
This is going to change the game for podcasts now.
If you've never listened to our show before, this is a science and sometimes funny show where we answer questions from the audience. So you send in the questions, we do the science research, and then everybody wins, hopefully.
Yeah,
that's the idea.
We get to present it to each other in a fun, meaningful way. It's the highlight of my week when we get to do this for each other.
Especially when we do it 3 or 4 times in a week. I mean, that's the best.
Oh, that is just highlight. Then the whole page is bright yellow. Highlight after highlight after highlight.
Oh, I'm so bad at taking notes. I would take all the notes and then I would go back and highlight the important stuff. And I'm like, no, I wrote down all the important stuff. So I just highlighted everything.
Yeah.
But that didn't work.
I just have a yellow page. I did not think this through.
I just started writing on yellow paper and was like, great, everything's highlighted. It's done.
Bam. Is that why legal pads are yellow? Because it's all important?
Actually, don't know.
Probably not.
Is it just easier to look at for long periods? Somebody should ask a question about it.
Yeah. Why are legal pads yellow? It's probably because like some lawyers started doing it, and then every other lawyer after that was like, "Well, only serious lawyers write on yellow pads."
Yeah, look at Jerry.
This. I think that's enough bantering for now.
Yeah, no more bantering for the rest of the episode.
Don't want to overdo it. Let's kick into that first question. Trace.
Yes.
What did you research this week?
So my question this week comes from Andrew. And Andrew didn't send us a voice note, but what they did send is an email. And they wrote, I want to know how far back in time you could travel and still fit in well enough to rise to predominance.
Oh.
Obviously, this makes the assumption that one can time travel, but when it comes to history and language and accents and appearances and the things we just don't know, how well could one fit in and still rise to some level of power, assuming your background is in the knowledge that you currently have, as in, a college-educated adult in 2024. Perhaps we could assume that you are thrust into this situation with just the clothes on your back and no additional time to study. Good luck not being labeled as a crazy person or being ousted or worse. And in their follow-up email, they wrote, the goal is to find a time period and location that you can go back to and integrate into society. So that's the question I researched. First, I wanted to ask, Julian, have you ever had this discussion before? You're out at a happy hour and like this comes up.
I don't know if I've ever brought it up with another human being, but I have thought about it.
Really?
Yeah, I love this idea, right? Because I remember distinctly watching once, when I was in college and getting a film degree, watching a Charlie Chaplin film from like 100 years ago. And there's like a poster in the background that says something, like a big fight or boxing match is happening today. And it's got 2-day. Like it used to be a hyphenated word. Mm-hmm. And that tripped me up because I was like, that's not that far back. But like that's evidence to me that language has changed a little bit in that amount of time. And it got me wondering about this exact thing. Like how far back could I go before it became really noticeable that I was not of that time, right?
Yeah.
Go back 100 years and maybe I'm writing like today and somebody's like, you forgot the hyphen. Oh, silly me, of course,
Yes.
But like another 100,
Silly
200
me,
years back and then those things just compound and eventually. The way we talk today, I also think is radically different from even like 50, 60 years ago, right?
It is true. This is some of the stuff that I looked into. So even though this is ostensibly a science-y podcast, this isn't really a science-y question, right? We're not talking about whether time travel is real. We're going to just say it is. There are a number of physicists who have looked into time travel and people who've talked about it on TV. I think my favorite, though, is when Stephen Hawking held a time travel party. Have you heard about this?
Yes.
And he held the party on like a Tuesday and sent out the invitations on Wednesday, but no one showed up on Tuesday. So he was like, obviously time traveling isn't real.
Brilliant.
Or as my friend Ray says, his way to disprove all of time travel. And I was like, okay. And he goes, show me the money. And then he holds his hand out and no money appears. So there's no time travel, at least I think caveat, that he has access to in his lifetime and remembers all the times he said,
right,
show me the money.
I had to pinpoint this. Or if he's just saying it all the time, he's like, maybe if I go back to pretty much any point
basically
in time.
any point, it's fine. I have this discussion a lot, which honestly, I love Ray. He probably does have this discussion.
How arrogant for Ray to assume that in the future, he's definitely going to have access to time travel technology, right? And then also
also have money.
And there won't be laws about going back and giving yourself money so then you can just invest it or something and make $1 trillion from doing nothing.
Just everybody can. Why not?
Yeah,
just keep
right?
doing it.
It would be chaos.
Yeah. Or just the norm. Everyone would be rich and so no one is.
Yeah.
But since, time travel's infinite, you just keep going back. So then you just destroy. Everything's destroyed.
Pouring more money into the past.
So we're assuming time travel is real. The problems that you immediately set on, I think are the same problems that I came up with. The main one being language, and then the second one being culture and customs, which Andrew alluded to as well, right? Like, good luck not being labeled as a crazy person or worse. And I think that's totally valid. In the 1800s, for example, things were completely different from how they are now in some ways and very similar in others. We just have a different cultural expectation for all sorts of different things. I mean, we've talked about it on the podcast, and I think it's pretty common knowledge that the colors pink and blue for different sexes of children, that's only a 20th century thing. That didn't come about. In the 1800s, you wouldn't go get blue stuff for baby boys and pink stuff for baby girls. It was the opposite. And that would just be one very minor thing that they'd be like, this is weird. Why don't you know this? Because everyone knows this. And a lot of people look at time now. We're very minimalist relatively in some ways, whereas Victorians were very maximalist, like color everywhere. Everything was different. There was no designer telling you, oh, well, this is the perfect way to set up your house, and just go online and look, and all of us will have the same colors in our house this year. They didn't have any of that. So everybody just would buy rugs and tablecloths, and they would all clash, and they didn't care because they were just excited about it. But there were also things like interpersonal relations, where right now we are very interpersonally related in some ways. But, back then you weren't going to just go to a bar, find someone that you're interested in hooking up with, and then go hook up with them, because things were maybe a little more strict. The culture, depending on where you lived, was a little more secretive. And not that people didn't thumpitate when they wanted to. Is that it? Is it thumpitate?
It was one of those. Thumpulation sounds so much worse, and therefore is my favorite.
Yeah, thumpulation. Not that people didn't have thumpulation meetings, but they were less overt about it than we might be today. Also, in the Victorian period, spiritual culture was big. And I bring this up because you said a couple hundred years ago, right? It compounds. So, other problems that I see with any kind of time travel is economics. Making money is so difficult in any time period. It requires the understanding of the time, the norms, the things that you're supposed to do, the things that people want from your business if you say we're to start one. Not a lot of digital ad sales in 1920, so not a lot of skills that you can translate to that kind of a time period. So if you think about inventions that would make the world better, that are simple enough for you to make with no infrastructure and no knowledge of the current culture, those kind of things could help you gain prominence and gain funds. But that's a really difficult thing.
Yeah, I would definitely be considered an unskilled laborer if I was launched back more than a century. I would just be useless. Everything I rely on to do the work that I do does not exist and will not exist. And I have no idea how to make it.
I think in your case, at least, I hadn't thought about this till now, but in your case, at least you do have some experience on the stage, right?
Yes.
You're okay making a fool of yourself in front of other people, which is not something that a lot of people in the past were particularly good at. There was a lot more social hierarchy, and you're like, I am not part of that, because you're a time traveler, not because you're Julian, although, porque no listos. And
yes.
So maybe you could go and work in the stage, in theater or something, and people would be like, wow, this guy really just lets himself go Wait, no, that's the wrong one. Let loose.
Well, it's funny you say that because do you remember the episode with Tom Scott and he brought up like the great vowel shift, right?
Yeah.
And so if you go back like 400 years or so, and it took place over many centuries, but in the English language, like the way that we pronounce vowels has changed, and it went through a dramatic shift. And so I could only go back so far before even then I'd be useless as an actor because I'd be reading the words and pronouncing them completely differently.
Completely wrong. They'd be like, where are you from? This is weird.
Why art thou saying it this way? Like,
yeah. So I actually did look into this a little bit. I didn't get into linguistics because I'm not a linguist, but I thought, I should email one. But then I was like, this is too much fun. So if you speak English, you could probably time travel a couple hundred years and still be understood and understand others. But there's a caveat. You have to already be pretty good at understanding dialects of English. Right? If you're one of those people that if somebody is from, I don't know, Boston, and you're like, I have no idea what they are saying, you're not going to do well in Victorian America, let alone any time before that.
Yeah, Boston's not even a dialect. It's just like there's some wickeds and some strange R pronunciations, and that's it, you know?
Right. It's not even like a specific and very difficult thing to understand. You know, it's not like Cockney rhyming slang or something, which is more difficult to understand. Or what I think a lot of people think of as the Scots. Like that is a difficult English group to understand. They speak English, but they also have their own slang, their own kind of regional system that they use to understand each other. Glaswegian is much more difficult to understand than people from Edinburgh. So if you have trouble understanding people from Scotland, you're probably not going to do well in your time travel system. You're going to be an unpaid or very low paid laborer, and that's just going to be your life.
So you need to, before you go back, make sure you've watched Shrek a lot. The time machine only deposits people in Scotland. So when you get out, you have to be ready.
You know what?
We can plug in any year, but it for some reason it always ends up in Scotland.
Somewhere in Scotland. So you just get there and they're like, what you did there? And you're like, I'm sorry, I don't understand what you're saying. And they're like, I'll kill ya!
What planet am I on?
Yeah, Star Wars style. It's snowing, and you're like, this snow planet. I don't know why Star Wars is like that. The whole planet is whatever is everything. There's just all one planet weather. I don't know. It's easier, but anyway, Star Wars is weird. So, interestingly, if you don't speak English, this is less of an issue in some places. Iceland, for example, the language has not changed in hundreds of years. So if you are Icelandic and you travel past Iceland, you can still understand the Icelanders. It didn't even become their official language till 2011, but they've spoke it the same in the 1600s as today.
That's amazing. So you just have to make sure you can mime to the Scotsman when you get out of the time machine.
How do I get to Iceland?
I need cold.
I don't understand your saying.
Yeah, that's it though. Okay, that's interesting to me. What are the factors that has made Icelandic change slower? Is it like a population thing? Is it because they're frozen all the time and so they don't talk very much?
They're all in the movie Frozen, and so they just it's in celluloid forever.
They thaw for like 3 months out of the year, and then they
everything just moves so much slower,
consumed and cryogenically frozen. So the language doesn't have a chance to change very much.
I don't know why it hasn't changed that much, but I would say there probably is something to do with isolation, population size. Most of that history, they didn't have airplanes, so they were just an isolated island community, and that likely contributed to their language not changing much. Meanwhile, English was being spread all over the world the last 400 years, and so now a third of the world speaks English. But that also means that we bring a lot of that back into the language. So we have a lot of words that aren't native English words. They're Arabic, they're Greek, they're Latin, they're, like all these other non-Roman Germanic Indo-European language words,
I also wonder how much like the cultural importance that a place puts on preserving a language has, right?
Yeah.
Like, I know I bring up Japanese all the time, but like Japanese is so interesting because it's got an entire system of writing dedicated to basically pointing out that certain words are loan words. If it's written with katakana, it's like, oh, that came from another language, right? And people have joked that Japanese is like, oh, we're going to make sure that these new words don't pollute, the purity of our language.
Interesting.
Sort of thing.
I'm not surprised by that. Japanese and in Japan in general, it is similar to Iceland. It's a little more isolated, depending on the time period you're looking at. So I find that really fascinating. Other languages that haven't changed that much, where if you were, say, an Arabic speaker and you went back in time, you could likely understand a lot of people even a few hundred years ago. Greek, Tamil, Farsi, they haven't changed that much. But modern English, I sort of hinted at, according to Encyclopedia Britannica, is based on a West Germanic language in the Indo-European language family. It's closely related to Dutch and German. Dutch also Flemish, same difference. I think you nailed one thing, which is the 2-day. I also thought about words that just didn't exist or were completely different not that long ago. H.L. Mencken, who is a pretty famous American journalist and critic and a humorist, but like a dark humorist. And he wrote a piece in the 1950s, which I read, and it was talking about the foreignness of the United States versus words in England. He's American, so he's like, went to England, and they don't have some of the words that we have. So even that slight change since the 1950s, some of these are now accepted in England. But like the word, for example, raccoon, that is an animal that we all know. And anybody who saw Guardians of the Galaxy knows that animal, and they probably knew it before that. But do you know when the word raccoon became a word in the English language?
Okay. Just spitballing based on history.
Yeah.
I assume they're native to North America, so it would have to be like after Europeans got to North America, and it's probably like an indigenous term that we just adopted.
Oh, you're the best.
Oh, thanks, bud. But yeah, that would mean at least like basically 1500s or later.
Yeah.
And then who knows how much it would make it across the pond. Do they have raccoons in the UK? Probably not.
Honestly, I don't know. 1608, though.
Okay, so 1608. Yeah, that makes sense to me. Are there raccoons in England?
They are described as an invasive species. So they have made it there, but they are not.
Somebody's brought the raccoons to England. Why did you do that?
So if you went back in time, even to like the 1910s, and you were like, oh, did you see that raccoon? They would know what you're talking about. Unless, of course, you're in Scotland and you go, oh, you have a raccoon? And they'd be like, what the God? What are you talking about? But other words that we use, just as more of an aside, but the vegetable squash does come from a native word, a squanter squash, which depends on how the English settlers wrote it down, because that word has likely been lost. But squanter squash was shortened to squash, and that is what we use today, not a word that you would have in England. And like Ben Bolin mentioned in his answer in Pod 45, after the initial major colonization of the New World, if you will, the Americas, eventually not a lot of English were going back and forth. There weren't a lot of the English translations going back and forth. So at some point, I guess we just lost that new Brit smell. And we just ended up with our own slang and our own words for things.
I don't know if you know this, but things got a little frosty there between us and the old home islands. Yeah. Sometime in like the late 1700s. And it really didn't pick back up again until like the early 1900s.
I must have missed that.
You were asleep.
Anyway. Yeah, I guess. So to wrap this whole kind of pre-game up, Mencken says that there are some things that have lasted in American English that actually don't exist, have fallen out of favor in England English by the 1950s. For example, fall instead of autumn, flapjacks, jeans, the word cesspool, the word catty corner, the word clever meaning amiable, the word stock when you're talking about cattle, and also saying a sentence and ending it with, I guess. So we didn't update our old slang, I guess. That's actually saying, I guess, at the end of a sentence is Shakespearean level English. Like that goes back so long, and the English don't do it anymore, but we still do it, which I think is fascinating.
We're fancy.
I guess.
We're cultured.
Okay, so let's game out this time travel situation. Okay?
Sure.
You're walking down the street, maybe the grocery store, whatever, it doesn't matter, friend's house. Let's just say, for the lack of fighting about it, you have a backpack, and in your backpack is a phone charger and like a battery, And let's also say that maybe you're just one of those people who wear a thick gold necklace all the time. That's important because, gold, pretty standard and solid piece of... So you don't have to like have money, because if you have zero money and you go back to literally any time in history, you're dead. That's it. You're just dead.
Yeah. Yeah, it's quite hard.
Human life was not a super valuable thing even 100 years ago. If you were just like a homeless person on the street in the late 1800s, you're probably not going to make it, which is too bad, but that is the reality. And if we're talking about time travel, you could find resources back then, but you'd have to really know the culture, and you're going to run into those problems not being from there. Right. So you're walking down the street, you have that feeling where you like slip on a puddle or something, like a black ice, and you hit the ground, but now you're back in time.
Oh no.
So it's just like instant.
I stepped in a temporal anomaly. I hate when this happens.
I should have worn my t-shirt that has the Oregon Trail, and it has all of it in the video game look, but it has a dinosaur, and it says you have died of a temporal anomaly. Dang it. Okay.
I hate it. Hate it when this happens.
So let's say you go back to, we're going to pick a European country because there are people there far back, so that you can interact with potentially. So let's go 1500s. Just, you mentioned it. Let's pick the 1500s. Right. Again, the complex English dialect is going to be a problem for you. However, in the 1500s, it was the end of the Middle English period, which is, as you mentioned, hundreds of years of transition from like a Middle English into more modern English. You could probably understand and be understood what was happening. The grammar would be confusing. Sentence structure was slightly different then. And if you were reading things, you're out of luck. You're not going to read any of that. It's not going to make any sense to you. Here's what I think would happen. Your phone that you have and your pocket knife would be stolen or broken pretty quickly. It would be a fun toy, but they're not really going to find it that valuable. It doesn't provide heat. It doesn't provide food. And they're not going to be like, wow, it lights up. We should take you to the king. That's not going to happen. They're going to kill you and take it from you.
It's only going to light up for like less than a full day and then never again.
Right. Even with the battery in your backpack that only you know how to use. The things that you're probably going to have to deal with are smallpox.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah. So, and maybe in the future too, if things continue the way they're going. But in the 1500s, the disease was considered endemic in most European countries. So it was just there all the time.
You're just going to get the pox.
You're going to get it. The Queen of English, I think as she was known, in 1562 was disfigured by smallpox. So it wasn't just like, oh, only the poor got it. It was everyone could get it. It killed almost 500,000 people in Europe every year until we eradicated it in the 1980s. It was still killing millions of people around the world.
Man, aren't vaccines great?
Aren't vaccines the best?
Aren't vaccines like one of the best things humans have ever figured out?
Oh my God.
Anyway,
apropos of nothing. So you'd probably end up with smallpox pretty quickly because, again, it's endemic. It's just out there and there's no way for you to not get it. And you also are unaware of the, shall we say, cultural norms that people would do to not get smallpox, assuming there were any, which is kind of to Andrew's point of what don't we know? Stuff that doesn't necessarily get written down, but everybody knows when you, sneeze, you sneeze into your elbow or something so that you don't spread COVID to other people, or like you wash your hands a lot, stuff that maybe isn't written down everywhere all the time. Now it is, but back then. So the other thing, if you don't die of smallpox, you might get dysentery. This is not an Oregon Trail joke. Dysentery comes from infected poop that gets into either your food or your drinking water. Still a problem in places in the world today. And you might know to wash your hands to try and avoid this, but where are you going to do that in the 1500s?
The river that people poop in.
Yeah. There's no indoor plumbing. There's no hot water, cold water tap. There's no public restroom except for the river. And you can get it by, quote, eating food or drink that's been handled by a person with dysentery, drinking unclean water, especially when traveling abroad or back in time, I guess, and also having thumpulation with people with dysentery.
Oh, really? Dysentery is an STI?
Apparently, yeah.
Wow.
I think it must be fluid transfer of some kind. Anyway, So to rise to power in the 1500s, you also probably had to be either born into it or marry into it. And so there's no real path to wealth and prominence without murder, marriage, and commerce was really just getting going. So it wasn't like you could be like, I started a cobbler business and now I make the best shoes in the land. And it's like, that's probably not going to happen.
I feel like you could leverage your future knowledge to claim some sort of aristocratic title, right?
Ooh,
like
maybe.
Count of Monte Cristo it.
Yeah. I think that would imply that you could read up in advance. Because if you could read up in advance, which Andrew said, like, let's imagine you don't. But if you could bring things that you could sell. You could bring things, which let's just come back to this, actually. Let's come back to this because I have a little section about it.
Okay, put a pin in it.
Yeah, but I think actually to your point, let's say you know where you are and you know the general customs because let's say maybe you're a history student of that period, of the medieval period or something. Your best chance that I can think of, you ready for this?
What?
Join the military, become really good at fighting in battle, and then get knighted and marry well somebody with money. Again, though, you're basically just living as a person then. Like, you're not saying, I'm a modern person. Who knows that? You're just like, I have a slight advantage in that I already know how to read and write, kind of, because it's 1500, so you have to relearn how to read and write. But you know how to read and write. You can speak well. You can essentially convince people who are wealthy that you are some either foreign or something. And so if you can go join a military and prove that you know some things, tactics that you learned in a video game, like you already have just some baseline knowledge that might help you. You could still very much smallpox, dysentery, other diseases, die, get killed, all of those things. So it'd be no better than luck. But
yeah, that'd be tough. Avoid the plague, like the plague.
Yeah. So let's not go to the 1500s. Let's go to the 1800s. English, You're going to be okay. Structure of English is similar. Like we talked about, it's like a dialect. With some vocab lessons, you'd be good. Not a lot has changed in the USA in the last few hundred years in terms of just, there are some cultural issues. They're still worried about smallpox. You're still worried about other diseases. But by the 1800s, people started to understand cleanliness. Don't get sick. Doctors were still just lobbing things off and, bleeding people. It's not awesome. So just don't get sick. However, the customs and culture part is going to be similar enough that you might be okay. Mm-hmm. So in the 1800s, I don't know if you know this, Julian, but I used to work at a museum. And in the 1800s, we'd wear wool clothing. And men's fashion is very similar. So what if you had that gold necklace, you could sell it, and you could get some fabric, or you could get some things and start to do commerce?
I'm just imagining taking my gold necklace to ye old pawn shop.
Yeah.
And they're like, verily, what does thug life mean?
Yeah. That's funny. Let's say that you can, cut it into pieces. You chunk it out so you can use it to buy things. You might be able to, depending on who it is that traveled back in time, if you have some knowledge of something like clothing, sewing, something, you might be able to use that. Even just how businesses are structured and how they work. If you have that gift of gab, in the 1800s, you might be able to use it to do commerce. Commerce is still the easiest way to get into prominence after the Industrial Revolution. And you might know enough about how something works that you can get ahead. Maybe.
Or you might know enough about historical trends, right? If you're like, oh man, I better jump on this textile industry or investing in these railroads, right?
Yeah, exactly. So in the mid to late 1800s, it's not that different from today. Don't talk to anyone's wife in public because that could get you in trouble. Don't swear in the presence of the wrong people. I don't think that you would want to be doing that. You obviously have to wear wool clothing, multiple layers of clothing all the time and cover up as much of your body as possible, which I think we would have trouble with as modern society. There's no, I'm just going to wear this because it's comfortable. That does not exist in Victorian period or any time actually, except for now. So if you think of it this way, if you were to travel to Japan as a modern person today on an airplane, do you think you would make some cultural mistakes? You personally in 2024 in Japan?
Constantly, all the time. And the only saving grace would be the fact that they know that there are other people, like Americans like me, that don't get it. And they're like, oh, it's just a dumb tourist. But if I was the only one in making these cultural mistakes, that would be bad. That I imagine there would be a lot less grace for me.
Right. And this is all assuming a lot. Like, I am Latino, but I pass as white. If I were not able to pass as white, that would really severely limit the places I could go in the 1800s.
I'm glad we're bringing this up because it's been on my mind from the very beginning.
It is, and this isn't to knock Andrew in any capacity, but this question, as a question, is one that is fun to ask if you look a certain way and have lived a certain lifestyle, but is not super fun to ask if you are a brown person.
Right.
It limits the fun part of the question to... Right. So if I go to certain parts of history, which is to say most, I am not going to just be able to like go rise to prominence for fun. It's just a very different world. And I think you nailed it, by the way, with if you go to Japan now, Japan exists in the same world we do. Like we're both in 2024. But if you went to Japan in 1800, very different.
Yeah.
We all saw shogun, you know.
Terrifying.
Very different world.
Terrifying when he shows up and they're all just ready to just cut everybody's head off all the time. I don't know how accurate that is to like feudal Japan.
But even if it's like 10% of the amount of time they're cutting heads off, that's still a lot of heads.
There were a lot of decapitation in that show.
Yeah.
Really good show.
To wrap it up a little bit, I think the rising to prominence part is going to be basically no better than luck. Modern people and people in the past are not different humans. We just have different perspectives on what society is because we lived in that one. So St. Louis or Chicago or something in the 1800s, if you've read The Jungle by Upton Sinclair, holy wow. Like if you haven't, go read it because there are echoes of it today in current American politics. But it is not an awesome story about family and working and trying to make it in a place like Chicago, which isn't to say, oh my gosh, the crime. No, it's just that's life. It was
a lot of it was like how difficult it was just having a normal job, like in a meat packing factory, right?
There were just no rules about workers' rights. And on top of that, things move differently. Right. We're used to modern society where, I need to fill out some paperwork. I'm going to make an appointment. I'm going to go to the place. I'm going to fill out the paperwork and I'll get on with my day. Whereas then you can go online and make an appointment. You'd show up somewhere to do the paperwork and maybe you'd sit there all day and never do it. And then you have to come back tomorrow and do it again until it was your turn to fill out the paperwork. You don't have pocket watches. You don't like everything was made to order. It was a wild thing for us to think about. And I think we would have a huge adjustment. But let's get into a little bit of the sciencey, researchy part before I wrap up. 1 kilogram of gold in 2024 is worth $90,000. It's about 32 troy ounces, which has been used for a long time. So you could measure that and figure how much money you want to bring back in time. And now we're going to assume that we can plan. Because I think without being able to plan, there's no rising to prominence. I honestly think no modern person, if you just threw them back in a random time, would rise to prominence because studies show rich people are lucky and nothing else. They are not more savvy, more entertaining. It's all luck. They've done computer models. It's all luck. However, people believe it's not, but it is. So 1 kilogram of gold in 1880 is worth $608. Now, of course, there's inflation. So if you had a gold bar from the movies, that's about 12 kilograms of gold. It's a lot heavy, 27 pounds. Today, worth $1 million, $1.08 million. But then it would be worth $7,200, about $7,300. So let's say you could somehow take a gold bar with you. You'd have that. I mean, you have $1 million in modern day, but whatever. Let's go back in time, I guess. The average monthly rent in, say, St. Louis in 1880 was $15 for a 4-room house.
What, a day?
A month.
What?
Yeah, monthly rent, $15 for a 4-room house.
I got to move to St. Louis in the 1800s.
Right. So gold alone would cover decades of rent. And board, of course, was then, like, if you imagine rent relative to how much it costs for food and other things, food was pennies, you know. So you could end up actually with quite a very comfortable life for several decades, assuming you make no other money, just with something like gold that amount of gold, which is $1 million worth of gold. It's not nothing. You'd still need clothing. So if I'm going to be able to pack for the past, I would definitely pack 10 to 20 very fancy dresses made of traditional fabrics, so not modern fabrics, 10 to 20 suits, needles, threads, other like precision instruments to make textiles. Get there and hire people to make clothing that looked like that. Have patterns for modern clothing, because especially menswear hasn't changed that much, and be able to, I think, rise to prominence because you have the funding, which is the primary thing you need. That's why rich people are rich now. It's not, I pulled my stuff up my bootstraps and randomly got rich. That's part of it is there was money involved.
I just worked 1 billion times harder than everybody else.
Right. No, that's not real. So maybe, and this is just, I think that could be something where anyone could get into it. Textiles were enough where it's like, it's about merit in terms of it's a really well-made thing. You meet the right person, maybe you'd be able to start selling it and, have fashion instead of just like clothing.
Cool. And you'd be aware of like the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire, so you could make sure that a bunch of young ladies don't burn alive because you have future knowledge. That'd be good.
Yeah, some safety things. Maybe you'd end up with the best workers because you'd treat them well and wouldn't just take advantage of them and only try and get out to make profit and just let them die. I don't know. The past was brutal. Mm-hmm. However, Julian, the answer to Andrew's question, I don't think any of the time travel questions you would be able to rise to prominence with no research at all. If you have some research, I do think with knowledge of where you're going, you could maybe have some prominence, not like, I'm going to be the king. Like, no, that's never going to happen. Even if you go back to like tribal, they just like when we're all little groups of humans running around with no like modern culture that we can identify, you're just going to get killed. You're just going to die. No one wants to go back in time and imagine themselves the serf. They all want to imagine themselves the lord. And let's be honest, 99.9% of people were the serfs. So
yeah,
we're all serfs in the past. But I think I solved this time travel-y thing.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm listening.
So just travel within your own lifetime. If you go back 20 years, do you think you could rise to prominence? Imagine 20 years ago, you went back 20 years from 2024, it's 2004. You already know all the customs, you already know all the language, but none of the technology that we have now is there. None of the like norms. You want to go pitch a cab company that uses people's cars instead of cabs? Like if you met the right person, you know the things that are already popular.
Right. Do you want to go invest in Apple in 1993 like we brought up before? I
literally wrote that down again because it's just like, you could do like rise to prominence. How far back in time could you travel and still fit in well enough to rise to prominence is the question. My answer, 20 to 30 years.
Interesting.
If you go any further than that, things would be too different. You wouldn't be able to easily adjust. And even things like in the year 1990, nobody needs a microfiber cloth. Like technology isn't that precise. The TVs still look like furniture. Like they're not going to be, I've got dust on my television screen. Like, no, they don't care. It's not important. So all these things that we associate. Remember the movie Jumanji?
Of course I remember the documentary Jumanji.
What year is it? He gets out of the game. It's been a few decades. That guy could do a lot, even without knowing the culture. Just having the time to live again and being able to be like, I can make different choices is huge. So maybe you invest in Apple early on, right? You go back in time, say to the 1980s. You invest in Apple fairly early on. I think I would go to like just before Steve Jobs rejoins Apple in the 1990s. So then you just have to put money into the stock market because you know it's going to go up.
Right.
You don't want to inadvertently destroy the thing that you are going to try and come to prominence doing. So you don't want to like go give money to Steve Jobs or try and run Apple. I don't have the connections that whoever made Apple big in the 80s and the 70s. So I wouldn't want to like deny them those connections. Maybe they would never get big. So you have to just kind of be a hermit. You have to go back in time and not influence anything because otherwise it's all going to change and it's going to be completely different and you can't rise to prominence again. So you bring your stuff with you that you bring some money or something that you can influence but not redirect, and you just become part of the stream of people living through all of the stuff you already know is there. Because if you do that, then you should be able to have some money, find a place to live, invest in the stock market, and then become a Warren Buffett type figure because you just invest very well. Maybe Warren Buffett is a time traveler.
One thing I was thinking of, imagine you travel back to like slightly before when you were born.
Yeah.
And then you rise to prominence, and then your parents like read a magazine article about you, and they're like, wow, they have the same last name, and they're like this visionary, like they have this bold kind of idea of what the future is going to be like. I want our kid to be like that. And then they name you after you.
I want to name them Julian Huguet.
Yeah, that guy.
Yeah.
That guy's got it all figured out, said nobody.
I thought maybe once you get back to where you would have left, like right before you left, give yourself a bunch of money. And then you are just making a paradox like we talked about at the beginning, where you're just infinitely funding yourself forever. But anyway,
show me the money.
Show me the money.
Show me the money.
So that's, I think, the unsatisfying, unfortunately, answer for Andrew is there really isn't a good answer in the fun 1500s, 1800s. Like, you can go back and like be Army of Darkness and like, oh, I've got my boomstick and everyone's afraid of me. You know what they would do? They would kill him. They would kill him and take his boomstick.
Not with his boomstick and chainsaw arm.
Yeah, well, they'd still kill him. There's thousands of them.
It was an army.
Yeah, of darkness, a dark army.
Bruce Campbell, that's the actor that we're
thinking.
Bruce
Campbell, Michigander, love him. The chin, as they say. But anyway, this has gone on too long. But the point is, Andrew, 20 years. That's my answer. Go back to the future style to like within your lifetime or just around there.
Yeah. Anything after that, there is a risk of being killed for being a witch.
Yes. Or smallpox.
Or smallpox. Here, I'm just imagining like you know how the old timey sailor maps have like here be monsters, right?
Yeah,
but it's like a time traveler's map, and it's just like anything 1970 before like here be smallpox.
Smallpox. Yep. Don't do that. Smallpox. All right. Well, let's take a quick break and come back and do your answer to your question. Julian, give me your best dinosaur roar.
Oh, God, an asteroid! It's horrible!
Wow, that was not where I expected that to go. We're popping in before the show to tell you about I Know Dino. It's a dinosaur podcast.
You know, we think of those dinosaurs being this thing that's been dead for tens of millions of years. Even so, studying dinosaurs can still teach us stuff that is relevant to the world today.
Yeah, like climate models to help us understand global warming.
Migration patterns of dinosaur lineages, they tell us about Earth's changing continents.
We can also study dinosaur diets, what plants lived then and maybe what animals and how they interact.
And, this is super cool, many dinosaur injuries, paleopathologies, they're the first known occurrences of diseases.
And they talk about all this kind of stuff on I Know Dino. It comes out every week with new dinosaur stories that you're not going to hear anywhere else. Like, I hadn't heard of a lot of these, which is pretty cool.
You can find I Know Dino on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever podcasts are. And if you found us, you can probably find them. Go check them out.
Well, welcome back to That's Absurd, Please Elaborate. I hope you didn't time travel while we were gone, but if you did and you enriched yourself, I hope that it worked out and you didn't die. So, Julian, who or what is your question all about?
My question is from Geoffrey, who sent in a recording to tell us the what.
Hello, my name is Geoffrey, and I'm from Las Vegas, Nevada. My question is, if you use the restroom at the top of a skyscraper, does your pee hit terminal velocity on its way to the sewer system? I first had this thought many years ago when my family and I were visiting Chicago. We were touring Willis Tower, and while at the top of this very tall building, I couldn't help but notice that there were bathrooms up here, and the thought just struck me that these toilets have to connect to the sewer somehow, but we're more than 1,000 feet in the air here, and that's quite a drop. So for whatever reason, the idea that we were high enough for my pee to literally hit terminal velocity when I flushed the toilet, I thought that was hilarious, and I've had it in the back of my mind ever since. Now, I assume it's not quite that simple. There's probably not a 1,400-foot vertical PVC pipe directly linking the toilet to the sewer, but perhaps there's points on the path down where it drops a few hundred feet. Maybe close to 1,000 even? I don't know. I never looked it up. Now I guess I don't have to because it's your problem now. Thank you for taking the time to answer my stupid question, and I look forward to being enlightened on the marvels of modern plumbing infrastructure. Thank you again.
That's so... I could have looked it up, but now it's on you.
I love that.
I mean, that's the premise of the show.
It is.
Also, the idea of like childish musings about pee-pee poo-poo and physics question is like the Venn diagram of where those overlap is also where this show exists. So,
it's true.
Yes. Perfect. Thank you, Geoffrey.
Thank you so much.
It's your problem now. It's
so good. I love that he wanted to look it up and he didn't.
And then, you know what? I'm going to send this in. I just have to send an email and a voice note and I'm done.
Look, did that solve anything? For him, it did.
Sure did. And you know what? I also decided that I was going to bother people and make this other people's problem as well.
Oh, I love it when you do a journalism.
It's fun. I'm becoming addicted to journalism. So, fortunately for us, we have a friend of the pod who is connected with a very well-known civil engineering show, and that, of course, is Ralph Crew. You remember Ralph. So, Ralph has just had a newborn baby. Congratulations, Ralph.
Yay, Ralph.
And Ralph's the Crew family. I decided to make it his problem as well. So I emailed him saying, hey, I know you might be a little busy, but could you look into this for me? Or barring that, could the host of Practical Engineering, Grady Hillhouse, maybe have some input on it? And Ralph, bless his wonderful, beautiful heart, still took the time to forward this to Grady. And also, by the way, later messaged me and was like, oh my gosh, I'm sorry. It took me so long to get back to you. And he even texted me. Like
he apologized to me as well. He's like, I'm so sorry. Can you give me Julian's number? I have to text him. I'm so sorry. And I'm like, you have a baby.
And then he also ended up texting me facts about giant extinct owls. And
honestly, I was going to say, if Ralph didn't send you at least one message about birds, then you did not get a message from Ralph.
That's how you know when he's kidnapped, right? If you don't get any
what's something only you know. And he would say something about the woodland thrush and like you'd be like,
no. So he's texting me like articles about extinct gigantic owls that were like half the height of a person. And I'm like, wow. Can you text Trace thank you for me for giving you my number? Anyway. That's a side note. That's a Ralph Crew appreciation moment. Anyway, Also we appreciate Grady Hillhouse, who did take the time to answer this briefly. Should I do my Grady impression?
Oh, I mean, I think so.
I've had this on my list of ideas for topics for a while. I think it could make a fun demo video. From my initial research, the answer is yes. It only takes 14 feet for water in a vertical drain pipe to reach its terminal velocity. So there's really not a big difference between a 2-story and a 100-story building. You have to ventilate this flow so it doesn't suck all the water out of the traps as it falls. So that's one of the main challenges. The other thing to keep in mind is that most tall buildings don't run sanitary stacks straight from top to bottom. There are intermediate mechanical floors that can break up the fall. Hope this helps. How was my Grady?
I mean, I think pretty good.
I think so.
I thought it was pretty good. It sounded like Julian, but with a lot more pep.
Yeah.
More pep in your step.
A lot more like, I'm going to explain something to you that I understand very, very well, but I'm going to be really nice and not judgmental about it. So
yeah, love that.
So yeah, like Grady mentions, though, it only takes 14 feet for water to reach terminal velocity. And I double checked that. I also looked at, the terminal velocity for a raindrop, because liquids, when they're falling, they tend to kind of spread out into little droplets, right? They don't stay as one solid tube of liquid.
Right.
So terminal velocity for a raindrop is about 9 meters per second or 20 miles an hour. And I did some math just to double check. And yeah, after about 14 feet or 4.3 meters, that would hit terminal velocity. So that's not very far. If you think of a typical floor height in a building being 10 feet or 3 meters, that's a floor and a half.
Yeah.
Right? I also found an NPR interview with an author, Kate Asher. She wrote a whole book about how skyscrapers work. And in this NPR interview where, you have a very erudite, sophisticated host, they brought up the question of P reaching terminal velocity. So Asher did say that, yes, there are sophisticated bends in the pipes and air that's let in to slow the water as it's moving through. You don't want to hear it as it's moving through the building. So you need to make sure that it's also soundproofed. You might have heard in a building the radiators banging, right? And that's from water moving through the pipes in the buildings for heat. Well, you can have that same issue with water moving out of the building. So these are things that skyscraper designers have to account for.
Cool.
Yes. Now, Geoffrey didn't ask this, but I think we're all thinking it. We've covered the number one issue in skyscrapers.
Yes. Thank you.
But not the number two issue.
Which, let's be honest.
Yeah.
I'd be more concerned about reaching a terminal velocity.
Same.
I mean.
Same.
Yeah.
So, let's talk about it. So, liquid and solid waste, I don't think they have the same terminal velocity. And you can figure out the terminal velocity of something with an equation. Here are the important parts of it. Terminal velocity will be higher if the object has a greater mass or if the acceleration due to gravity is higher. But obviously, we're all on Earth here, so that's not really going to change very much. There are like slight variations, but it's not that big of a deal. Mostly the mass is the thing you care about. And then it'll slow down depending on the drag coefficient of the object, so like how slippery it is through the air. The density of the fluid through which it's falling, and that's, air we're assuming, right? But air can have different densities, or let's say you take all the air out of a tube and then you have like a hyperloop for poop. A hyperpoop, right? Then it can go faster. Or if you've got like more pressure in the pipe, slower.
So would that mean then if I had that and I hit a lever while peeing, would I be going into hyperpeed? I think I would.
Oh boy, we are toddlers. Finally, last thing that'll slow down an object's terminal velocity is the projected area of the object. So, when you're looking at it coming at you straight on, right? That cross-sectional area.
The tube
right.
of poop.
When you're standing below the skyscraper toilet and somebody flushes and you look
in
straight
Home Alone
up.
6.
Right.
When he stands at the bottom of the skyscraper.
Area. Don't think about it too much. Okay? So I'm thinking, with the number two, you're going to have a more massive lump than like little water droplets. Can it go faster?
Depending on where you fall in the Bristol stool chart.
Right. That is important. There's a lot of variability in solid waste.
Yes.
So I did some digging, and this number kept popping up in everything I found. And that was that poo in the tubes of a skyscraper can reach 122 miles per hour.
What?
That's
196 kilometers per hour.
Okay, yeah, that's true. I thought you were going to compare it to
I didn't want to do that yet.
The speed of a train. I found multiple videos that said this, and it was very suspicious to me because they all used the exact same number and then almost always the exact same wording afterwards. Like, that's basically the speed of a train.
Yeah.
And to me, that's like a definite red flag that like we've got a woozle. We've got like a number that somebody started using at some point, and it just goes around and around and around forever, and nobody really thinks about where it is. Yeah, it's from a Winnie the Pooh story where they're looking for some creature in the 100-acre wood, and they're following the tracks, and then they realize that they've been following their own tracks the whole time. Huh. Anyway, I don't know if that's actually from the story. I only heard that somewhere on the internet. So maybe a woozle is itself a woozle.
A woozle. That's like that 122 miles an hour. That's about 7/10 as fast as a helicopter can fly.
Okay, all right. Okay.
Or about as fast as a skydiver that's got their belly to the earth falling.
We will come back to that.
Oh! The Blue Bulb Project wins again.
Yes, because I actually was like, well, how fast does a whole human being go when they're falling? And it is 200 kilometers an hour, 120 miles an hour, about the same speed as a poop.
As the woozle poops.
But we have a lot more mass than our poop. I don't know if you know that. Most people are not entirely made of poop.
Most people. Not everybody,
right?
But most people.
And again, we talked about the projected area matters too, so maybe it balances out there, but the number just didn't sit right with me. It seems way too fast, right?
Yeah.
So I found eventually an article from the Daily Mirror, and it's written by a guy named John Dean, and it starts with this quote of, poop can reach 122 miles an hour in the pipes of a skyscraper, and that it's about the same speed as trains in the UK. And I'm like, this is the source. This must be where it started.
It's got to be that guy.
And the funny thing is, in the very next paragraph, the article quotes a drainage expert, Mark Briggs, who says that poo hits terminal velocity after about 5 floors. Well, the math don't math then, right? If a floor is 3 meters, then that's 15 meters of falling. And, you do the math on how fast, gravity could possibly accelerate something after that distance, and it's only 18 meters per second, about 40 miles an hour. So it's like a third of this 122 mile an hour thing that's quoted. Don't know why that 122 mile an hour number exists. Maybe there's some pressure in the pipe that's forcing along, but
maybe that guy just made it up.
Just from gravitational acceleration, it's not gonna happen, okay? So to hit that speed, something would have to fall, and this is discounting air resistance entirely, it would have to fall 155 meters, so over 50 floors.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's a long way. Like, you're Sears Towering it up now.
Yeah, that's 10 times farther than the drainage expert said. So I don't think we have to worry about a poop cannonball just destroying the pipes from sheer speed as it rockets down the tube, okay? Now, Briggs, that drainage expert, says, after 5 floors, once it's hit terminal velocity, it doesn't matter much. But you do still need to account for, quote, bounce back when it hits the bottom. And you do this by making the pipes a certain diameter. So Grady also mentioned, though, that in skyscrapers, you have mechanical floors. And these are entire floors that are dedicated to actually making the building operate, right? You might have like electronics or elevator motors, or you might have water tanks and water pumps. And the rule of thumb for skyscrapers is you need 1 mechanical floor for every 10 residential floors, thereabout. And you don't have to put them all like 10 floors, then a mechanical floor, 10 floors, then a mechanical floor.
That's a lot more than I thought there would be.
Well, it makes sense because it's more efficient. Keep in mind, you have to pump water up to the top of this building, right?
True.
And it's not just having it come down again. So when you pump water up, it's more efficient to have it go up a short distance and then like have a tank there that you can fill up a lot of water and have it reserved for like emergency use if the sprinkler system needs to come on or something like that.
Right.
And then have another pump that stages and takes it to the next mechanical room 10 floors up. Right?
Yeah, because then you're only pumping at 10 floors. It's the same pump every 10 floors.
Exactly.
Because it's not like gravity gets stronger the higher you go up. It's just the further you have to pump it up. So you end up buying, if you have a 50-floor building and you have a mechanical floor every 5 floors, you end up buying 4 or 5 pumps. And like they're all the same pump. They're all going to go 10 floors. It's no big deal.
Yep. It's more efficient. It's got redundancy, so it's better for safety. It just makes more sense to do it this way. So likewise, right, you're going to have sewage treatment stuff on the way down coming through these mechanical floors, right?
Yeah.
You're going to have your hot water tanks, your boilers, your air handlers, but then you'll have like wastewater grinder pumps and tanks. So there isn't really a solid continuous drop from the Sears Tower that's going to be more than, say, 10 floors at a time, which after 5 floors, again, you don't really worry because it's already hit terminal velocity. So I hope that answers Geoffrey's question that, yes, your pee probably will hit terminal velocity if you're far enough away from a mechanical room, but it won't matter that much. The building's designed to handle it. It's fine. Not going to break anything and have poop shooting out of, the faucet. Rest at ease.
Meanwhile, in the 1500s, you would just be in a castle high up. There'd just be a hole, and you'd open the hole and just poop down the side of the castle into the moat. It would hit terminal velocity and then probably start rolling and, just a whole, wow, just a real magical, like just imagine something like the Mickey Mouse's castle. And
this is
like poop holes on the side.
Totally totally unimportant thing to add to this. It does not have anything to do with Geoffrey's question, but did you ever hear about the castle that was conquered because the besiegers shimmied up the poop hole?
I did hear about that.
I love that story, right? Where they installed a pooper like high up so it would be convenient for, the nobles or whatever in the castle to just go out of this. And the besiegers realized like, hey, that's like just wide enough that a person could wiggle up up in there.
Yep. And get right to where the nobles are.
Yep.
The noble poples.
And you thought the Death Star having a convenient I win button, on the side of it was a plot hole. Nope. Turns out that sort of thing happens.
People just design stuff dumb.
Yep,
and
sure
they
do.
think they're doing good. They ain't. And with that, thank you for listening to this episode of That's Absurd. Please elaborate. The show was created and written and produced by that guy over there, Julian Huguet.
And that guy over there, Trace Dominguez.
It was also produced and edited, and I'm assuming at some point, bathroomed, by the wonderfully talented Kyle Sisk.
Man who came from the future to rise to prominence in the podcasting world.
That's what I overlooked. Podcast editor.
Special thanks to listeners who submitted questions featured in this episode, Andrew and Geoffrey. If you would like to submit questions, you can look for the forum down in our show notes. You can email us at hello@that'sabsurdshow.com or go to our website, that'sabsurdshow.com/ask. And you can even call us if you like, 302-TAPE-SHOW, TAPESHO.
I do check all of those voicemails and listen to them. So even if you just want to send us a compliment or something, you can do it there. Although I'd be much happier if you left us a review wherever you are listening right now. I think that's a better way to use your time. However, either way, special thanks to all of our Patreon subscribers. Y'all are the best. Thank you for supporting the show and helping us do this every week. And a big shout out to our absurd administrators, Les and Adam.
Finally, a special thanks to those listening on Nebula. Nebula listeners get access to ad-free versions of episodes, and they can even support us and other awesome independent creators like Grady and Ralph, who make Practical Engineering. You can watch it on Nebula and support them. They're wonderful. To join Nebula, go to go.nebula.tv/that'sabsurdshow. Well, Trace, what do we always say at the end of every episode?
Don't time travel. Just don't do it. You die. You're gonna die. You don't do it.
It used to be don't time travel with a chicken, and now we're just, you know what?
Don't time travel.
Just don't.
Don't time travel with a chicken. Don't time travel without a bar of gold. And 10 to 20 fancy dresses and suits.
Don't time travel without watching Shrek many times over. So when you land in Scotland, you'll be ready.
As we say at the end of every episode, when you time travel to Scotland, make sure you make sure that you say donkey.
That's the traditional greeting.
Ogres have layers, like onions have layers.
Wow, I feel like I just time traveled. Did we just go back in time?
Remember, we say at the end of every episode,
poop does not travel 122 miles an hour in a pipe. That's ridiculous.
No, it does. If you're on a train in the UK pooping,
do a little bit of critical thinking when presented with information, even from a source that sounds trustworthy, okay? Like, just because it's in a video or an article or a podcast, like, just apply your brain a little bit, you know?
Yeah,
like
always double check.
122 miles an hour for poop? Come on!
Even just the air resistance alone would break that up.
Ridiculous. Also, we talk about drag coefficient. What if I had a lot of corn?